why is salt such a concern for heart health?
Well, salt, or more specifically the sodium in salt, is a major driver of high blood pressure. And high blood pressure puts extra strain on your heart and blood vessels,
Hmm.
making you more vulnerable to heart attacks, stroke, all sorts of scary stuff.
Okay, so how much salt is too much?
The American Heart Association recommends no more than 2,300 milligrams of sodium per day, and ideally even less than that, around 1,500 milligrams.
It's not very much.
It's not, and here's the kicker. Most of the sodium we consume isn't from the salt shaker. It's hidden in processed foods, restaurant meals, even foods that sound healthy.
Wow, that's sneaky.
It is. That's why reading labels and cooking more meals at home is so important. It gives you more control over how much salt you're consuming.
So salt awareness is key.
It is. Now, one last thing before we move on. It's the elephant in the room when we talk about heart health alcohol.
Ah, yes, the love-hate relationship with alcohol. Is it good for us? Is it bad for us? The studies seem to flip-flop all the time.
I know, it's confusing. Studies have shown what's called a J-shaped relationship between alcohol and heart health.
J-shaped, that sounds interesting. Explain.
So it means the very low to moderate drinking, like 1 drink per day for women and up to 2 for men, might have some slight protective benefits for the heart.
Okay, so there's the low point of the J.
Right. But then as you drink more, the risk starts to climb steeply. That's the upswing of the J. And heavy drinking is undeniably harmful.
Got it. So moderation is key, but the risks might outweigh the benefits.
Exactly. And the American Heart Association is very clear. They don't recommend starting to drink for any reason. There are just too many other health risks associated with alcohol.
So if you don't drink, don't start. And if you do, keep it moderate. Solid advice. Okay, now before we move on, I want to emphasize that this whole conversation isn't just about our hearts, it's about our whole bodies.
Oh, absolutely. A heart-healthy way of eating has ripple effects throughout your entire system.
So let's talk about those ripple effects. What are some of the other benefits we can expect from embracing this lifestyle?
Well, first let's revisit fiber.
Our old friend fiber.
Yeah. It does so much more than just keep things moving, if you know what I mean. It can lower your risk of metabolic syndrome.
Okay, remind me what that is again.
Metabolic syndrome is basically a cluster of risk factors, things like high blood pressure, high blood sugar, excess belly fat, that increase your risk of developing heart disease, stroke, type 2 diabetes.
Got it. So fiber is like a superhero fighting on multiple fronts.
Exactly. And another benefit is that by focusing on whole, unprocessed foods, you're naturally getting a wide range of essential nutrients.
Makes sense. You're getting everything straight from the source, not relying on supplements.
Right. And speaking of those amazing nutrients, let's talk about phytochemicals.
Okay, phyto what?
Phytochemicals. They're basically plant compounds found in things like fruits, vegetables, whole grains, and they have a ton of health-promoting effects.
So the more colorful our plates are, the more phytochemicals we're getting.
You got it. Now, beyond gut health and nutrient power, a heart-healthy dietary pattern can also help prevent a whole host of chronic conditions.
So it's not just about our hearts. It's about preventing all kinds of health problems.
Exactly. For example, did you know that a heart-healthy diet can lower your risk of type 2 diabetes?
Wow, that's huge. Diabetes is such a serious concern.
It is, and it's often linked to an unhealthy diet and lifestyle. But by making those conscious choices about what we eat, we can significantly reduce our risk.
That's empowering. What about our brains? Can eating for a healthy heart also keep our minds sharp?
There's growing evidence that what we eat can have a profound impact on cognitive function. It's like that saying, food for thought.
So we're feeding our hearts and our brains with the same healthy choices.
You got it. And the benefits don't stop there. A heart-healthy diet can even protect our kidneys.
Seriously, it really is a whole body approach.
It is. And there's one more bonus benefit we haven't talked about yet.
Okay, I'm on the edge of my seat. Tell me more.
Eating for heart health can also be good for the planet.
Whoa. Now that's what I call a win-win-win.
You got it. By choosing more plant-based foods, reducing our meat consumption, minimizing food waste, those are all things that benefit our hearts and the environment.
It's amazing how interconnected everything is.
It really is. Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here. We've talked about the ideal heart-healthy diet, but let's be honest, life isn't always ideal, right?
You're telling me.
The statement actually acknowledges that there are some pretty big challenges people face when it comes to making those healthy choices.
Okay, so let's talk about those challenges. What are some of the biggest roadblocks people encounter on this heart-healthy journey?
Well, one of the biggest hurdles is socioeconomic factors and food insecurity. For many people, access to affordable, healthy food is a constant struggle.
Right, it's a privilege to even have that choice. For a lot of people, it's not even an option.
Exactly. Limited budgets, lack of transportation, living in so-called food deserts, those are all factors that make it incredibly difficult to prioritize healthy food.
It's a heartbreaking reality. And the statement even points out how existing food assistance programs like SNAP and WIC, while crucial, they often don't cover the full cost of a healthy diet.
That's right, which leaves many families struggling to make ends meet. And not everyone qualifies for those programs.
It's a complex issue, for sure. And it highlights the need for systemic solutions at the policy level to address food insecurity and ensure that everyone has access to affordable, nutritious food.
Absolutely. It's about creating a system that supports health for all, not just a privileged few.
I couldn't agree more. But while we're working towards those big picture solutions, what can individuals do to navigate these challenges in their own lives?
Well, one thing that can make a huge difference is meal planning.
Meal planning. It sounds so simple, but I know a lot of people struggle with it.
It's true. But taking a little bit of time each week to plan out your meals and snacks can save you so much money and stress. It helps you avoid impulse purchases and makes the most of your grocery budget.
Okay, so it's about being strategic with our food choices.
Exactly. Another helpful tip is to cook more meals at home.
There's just something so satisfying about cooking a delicious meal from scratch.
I know, right? Plus, it gives you more control over the ingredients and how much salt you're adding.
Okay, so meal planning and home cooking are two key strategies. What else can we do to make healthy eating more accessible and affordable?
Don't be afraid to get creative with leftovers.
Leftovers, my favorite.
You know, that roast chicken from last night can be transformed into a hearty soup or a delicious salad. It's all about getting the most out of your ingredients and minimizing food waste.
Reduce, reuse, recycle for food. I love it.
Oh,
Now, we've talked about socioeconomic factors and food insecurity, but there's another layer of complexity we need to acknowledge, and that's structural racism and neighborhood segregation.
this is such a crucial point because it highlights how historical and systemic factors have shaped food environments in ways that create barriers to healthy eating for certain populations.
It's about understanding that our choices are made within a context, and that context isn't always fair or equitable.
You got it. It's not just about individual responsibility, it's about the systems and structures that influence those choices.
So in many communities, with a high concentration of people from historically marginalized racial and ethnic groups, there are fewer supermarkets, more fast food restaurants, and limited access to fresh produce.
Exactly. And those disparities are often compounded by things like lack of transportation, lower incomes, and fewer job opportunities.
It's a complex web of interconnected issues, and it can feel really overwhelming to think about.
It can, but it's important to acknowledge these systemic factors and advocate for policies that promote equity and access for all communities.
Right. We need to be working towards solutions that create a more just and equitable food system for everyone.
Absolutely. And in the meantime, we also need to be aware of the powerful influence of targeted marketing, which often pushes unhealthy food and beverages on vulnerable populations.
It's true. Those ads are everywhere, on billboards, social media, TV. They're constantly bombarding us with messages about convenience, indulgence, and quick fixes.
And research has shown that those messages often disproportionately target Black and Hispanic children, which is really concerning.
It's like they're preying on the most vulnerable members of our society.
It is, and it perpetuates a cycle of unhealthy habits and contributes to those health disparities we were talking about earlier.
So how do we push back against these powerful marketing forces? How do we make more mindful choices in a world that's constantly trying to tempt us?
Well, awareness is a great first step. Once you start paying attention to how food is marketed, you'll be amazed at how pervasive those messages are and how persuasive they can be.
It's like seeing The Matrix for the first time. You can't unsee it.
Exactly. And once you're aware of those tactics, you can start to question them and make more conscious decisions.
Okay, so it's about becoming a more discerning consumer, being aware of those subtle and not so subtle ways that marketing tries to influence our choices.
You got it. And you know what else? Talk to your kids about this. Help them develop those critical thinking skills early on so they can make healthy choices, even when they're bombarded with those tempting messages.
Empowering the next generation. Okay, so we've talked about socioeconomic factors, structural racism, and targeted marketing. But there's one more big roadblock I want to tackle. Convenience.
Ah, yes, convenience, the siren song of modern life.
It's so tempting to go for the quickest and easiest option, especially when we're juggling work, family, and all the other demands of our busy lives. I'm definitely guilty of this.
We all are, but the truth is that convenience often comes at a cost.
So those prepackaged meals, drive-through dinners, and sugary snacks, they might save us time in the short term, but they're not doing our hearts any favors.
Exactly. And all those added sugars, unhealthy fats, and excess sodium, they can lead to a whole host of health problems down the road. It's like we're trading our long-term health for a few minutes of
So
convenience.
how do we strike a balance? Is it even possible to eat healthy in our fast-paced, convenience-obsessed world?
Absolutely. It's all about planning ahead and making strategic choices.
Okay, give us some strategies.
One of my favorite tips is batch cooking.
Batch cooking. I've heard of this, but I've never actually tried it.
It's a game changer. Basically, you spend a few hours on the weekend prepping healthy meals and snacks for the week ahead.
So you're like a meal prepping machine.
It's like setting your future self up for success. When you have those healthy meals and snacks ready to go, you're less likely to cave to those tempting convenience foods when you're tired and hungry.
I love that. It's like you're taking care of yourself even when you don't have the time or energy to cook.
Exactly. And don't be afraid to embrace shortcuts. Frozen fruits and veggies are just as nutritious as fresh, and they're incredibly convenient. Canned beans and lentils are another pantry staple that can be thrown into salads, soups, or stews for a quick protein boost.
Those are great ideas. It's about making healthy eating work for our real lives, not some idealized version of life where we have unlimited time and energy.
Exactly. Now, before we wrap up this part of our deep dive, I want to shift gears for a moment and talk about the internal factors that influence our food choices.
Ooh, okay, what are you thinking?
We've talked about all these external forces, socioeconomic factors, structural racism, targeted marketing, and the allure of convenience. But what about our internal world? What role do things like mindset and motivation play in adopting a heart-healthy lifestyle?
That's such a great question, and it's often overlooked in conversations about nutrition. We can have all the knowledge and resources in the world, but if we're not internally motivated to make a change, it's unlikely to stick. It's
Right.
like that old saying, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink.
Exactly. So how do we cultivate that internal motivation? How do we shift from a place of I should do this to I want to do this? That's the million-dollar question. And honestly, there's no single answer that works for everyone.
It's so personal, right? What motivates one person might not work for another.
Exactly. But one powerful approach is to connect with your why. Why is heart health important to you? Is it about living a long and vibrant life, setting a good example for your kids, or maybe just feeling your best?
Tapping into those deeper values, I love that.
Hmm.
It's not about following rules. It's about connecting with what truly matters to us.
Precisely. And once you've connected with your why, making those healthy choices becomes much easier because you're doing it for you. And remember, it's about progress, not perfection. Don't beat yourself up if you have a slip up or an off day.
That's such an important reminder. It's a journey, not a destination.
Exactly. And celebrating those small wins along the way can be incredibly motivating. Give yourself credit for choosing the salad over the fries or for cooking a healthy meal at home instead of ordering takeout.
It's about acknowledging our efforts and recognizing how far we've come.
And here's something else that I find fascinating. Often when we start nourishing our bodies with healthy foods, we naturally start to crave those foods more.
Really, it's like our taste buds change.
It's almost like our bodies are thanking us for making those healthier choices. And that positive feedback loop can be incredibly motivating.
Wow, I love that. Okay, so we've covered so much ground in this part of our deep dive. We've explored the practical challenges of healthy eating in a world that often feels stacked against us, and we've talked about the importance of mindset and motivation.
We have.
It's been quite a journey.
It has. But before we move on, I want to emphasize that you don't have to do this alone.
Oh, that's so important. We all need support.
We do. Connecting with friends, family, even online communities, it can make a huge difference. Surround yourself with people who encourage you and cheer you on.
It really does take a village.
It does. And you know, another great resource is a registered dietitian or a certified health coach.
Oh yeah, those are great options.
They can provide personalized guidance and support tailored to your specific needs and goals. Sometimes having that extra accountability and expertise can be just what we need to stay on track. Remember, you're not alone on this journey.